Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a good day. Tonight, I feel I need to share my story. I made a post earlier on Facebook, and I feel it's time to share the story of how I came to be. And I'm speaking on behalf of all the guys out there, all my brothers. I'm going to talk about abuse in relationships, because a lot of it, there's a lot of guys out there that are ashamed to talk about it, because there's not much out there. When we think of abusive relationships, the first thing that comes to mind are violent men towards the girlfriends, towards the partners, and yes, the percentages might be higher, but it also happens to us guys as well. And I want to talk a little bit about my experience of that. So I think it's some years ago now. In 2008, it would have been. My life started to change. I started to become more spiritually aware, and during this time I was in a relationship. I was living with my girlfriend, and things weren't brilliant. I wasn't happy and she wasn't happy, and I was starting to see the world differently, and it sort of like made us drift apart. And I felt quite isolated at this time. So I started looking for groups on Facebook to find like-minded people, so to know that I wasn't going crazy. And I came across this group called Indigo Adults, and it was a group of like-minded people. A lot of them was in America, and I became friends with three other members of the group, and we became close friends. There was this guy from America who is still on my Facebook today, this woman from Ireland, and this woman from Scotland, and we arranged all to meet up, and we was all going to meet up. And my friend was going to come over from America. My other friend, she was going to come over from Ireland, and my other friend was going to come from Scotland. So, and we every night we'd get together and we'd talk, and it was really nice. But the woman in Scotland, we started to develop a close friendship, and that's all it was in the beginning, was a friendship. She started to tell me all about the twin flame, thing. Now I'd never heard of twin flames. I never knew what a twin flame was. And so she told me this story about the twin flame relationship, and I think we was talking for about 12 months, and she kept saying that she wanted me to move up to Scotland. And now at the time, she also had a husband and a family, and and I was in a relationship, so you know it was just going to be a friendship, and she was telling me all about her husband, how he was abusive to her. He was a horrible, angry man, and she was going to split up with him, but she just needed that that getaway, really. And in the end, because I wasn't happy in my relationship, I ended up calling it off with my girlfriend, and she ended up moving out, and once she'd moved out, not long after that, the woman from Scotland, she came down and visited me, and she stayed for a few days, and we had a really nice time, and we got to know each other, and then it was time for her to go, and she brought on the tears when I left her on the train. One of the first signs was a profile picture did not match her. It was her, but a profile picture on her Facebook was when she was about 10 years younger. And so the woman I met that got off the train didn't really look much like the woman in the profile picture. So, but I didn't really think anything about it, because it's just like, oh, she's a friend and she's spiritual. But when she went back, I felt really empty, because she made me feel like she was the only person that understood me and total got me, and she came across as being very, very spiritual. And I thought, wow, this is amazing, because I'd not met anybody like this before, who understood me and who actually got me. So, but what hurt the most is I knew she had a husband, and it could not go any further. And every day she would talk to me and tell me that if I moved up to Scotland, she would split up with her husband and we would be together. So eventually, after months, I decided that something told me inside that it felt right to just pack up my stuff and move. So I quit my job and I went up to Scotland. But the day before I moved up, I quit my job by this time, and the day before I moved up, I sorted all my house out as well. I was all packed up. She told me she didn't want me. She told me that it was a silly idea moving up and I should stay down here. And I said to her, why didn't you tell me this a week ago? I've packed all my stuff. I've quit my job. And then the day after, I got the train and I went up. I got myself out a flat, got myself a job, and the abuse didn't really start straight away. And I kept asking her. I kept saying, how's things going with your husband? And she was like, yeah, I'm going to split up with him. And then in this job, I started to make friends. And that's when things got a bit strange. She didn't want me to have any friends. She'd start telling me that these people didn't really want to be my friend, and they were just fake, and they had bad energy, and everybody seemed to have bad energy, and I couldn't trust anybody. And then I met this one guy who I became really good friends with, and it was like my best friend, and it was the only friend I had up there, and he was gay, and that was not a problem to me whatsoever, because it's just a label, you know. We're all human. But she made an issue of it, and she started saying that he liked me, and just watch his actions when it's around me, and she got me a bit paranoid. So I ended up falling out with him, because later on we got back friends, and I apologized to him. But so she took away my only friend, and then 12 months after that, she finally split up with her husband, and she asked me to move in with her, and she said that things are going to change now. Now I'm moved in with her, and it's all going to be good. And it was fantastic. If I'm not going to lie, it was fantastic for the first 2 months. Then it started. I did something by mistake, and she told me, she looked at me and told me she hated me. She didn't want anything to do with me, and she wouldn't talk to me for a few days, and then she started with my family, and this woman was trained in NLP. She worked in a home for abused children. So she got all the psychology and counselling degrees, which was very dangerous. So she started to she started to tie me in knots, and I can't. A lot of it is blocked, but she would be really hateful, and she had this thing that she did. So she would call me a loser. She would mock the way I speak. She would tell me things like my family never loved me, and they didn't get me, and the only person that gets me was her, and I'm nothing without her, and then she changed, and it would get to the evening, night time, and she'd cuddle up to me in bed, and she'd seduce me. And me being a young guy, you know, I was full of lust, and then she would talk about the whole twin flame thing, and this is how it was meant to be, because we was twin flames. So I started to believe that maybe I was a bad person, and that I deserved this, and it got to the point where I just became an empty shell. She starved me. She didn't, and people would say, well, how can anybody starve you? Well, she uses tactics. So the money I brought in from my job, she would say to me, it's for the house, it's for the house. So she would black my head so much that I would get confused, because I'm dyslexic. So when somebody fires a lot of numbers at me, my brain gets confused. So she'd start reeling off all these numbers. So I'd give her all my wage, and I worked 12-hour shifts at that time, and she'd make me, in the beginning, she'd make me one peanut butter sandwich, a slice of bread, one peanut butter sandwich for a 12-hour shift in a warehouse. And then I had to start making my own, and which I did. But I had no money, and none of my own money. And I remember one day, I was doing the shopping, and she was waiting in the car. I had to do the shopping, and I found 60p in my wallet. I was getting further and further into debt, and I found this 60 pence in my wallet, and I thought I was rich. And I just looked, took this 60 pence out of my wallet, and I bought myself a bar of chocolate. And I put it in, and I was eating it after the shopping, and I got back in the car, and she looked at me and said, "What have you done?" I said, "What do you mean?" And she said that, "You've been eating, haven't you?" And I said, "No." And the chocolate wrapper fell out of my pocket, and she says, "Where have you got that from?" And she accused me of stealing from her. I said that was 60p in my wallet, and she turned around and said, and swore, gave me a lot of abuse, verbal abuse, and said that money could have gone into the house. And that night, she pinned me up against the wall and threatened to kill me. And then she took my phone off me and was just laughing. And then she threw me out. She kicked me out. I had nowhere to go. I had no phone to call anybody. And then she took me back in after half an hour being stood in the rain. And I went in, and she was sat on the table in the kitchen in the dark with a knife in her hand. And by this point, I was numb, emotionally, mentally, physically. I was just numb. And she got, and she says, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to stab you." And I turned around and I said, "Do it." And she looked and went, "What do you mean, do it?" I said, "Do it." I said, "You've taken everything away from me. You've made me fall out with my family. You've got no friends." I said, "I'm dying anyway, so just do it." And I said, "You've got a lot more to lose now than I have." And I said, "You've got your children. You'll lose your children. You'll get put in prison for murder." And she dropped the knife and hooked me, and we talked, and it got better. And I thought, okay, she's, every relationship has its moments. So I passed. So I passed it, just dismissed it, and things were great for a few more weeks. And then she started again. And then my mum was trying to contact me, and she was saying that, just telling me that my family didn't like me, they didn't want me, they never loved me, and nobody really cares for me, and I'm all she's got. I was physically exhausted by this point. My body had started to shut itself down. I looked like a skeleton. I was losing weight dramatically. I was emotionally numb. I was just a shell. I was very confused. So she'd do another trick. So we'd order a takeaway, and she'd tell me to. She'd tell me what everybody wanted, and instead of writing it down, I had to memorize it. And when I remember, but when you've been exposed to manipulation, psychological manipulation and abuse, you don't have no memory. You can't, because your mind is that tangled up that you have no memory of it. So then she'd call me thick. She'd say I was a complete loser, and she'd start mocking me again. And the woman had no remorse whatsoever. And this was quite scary at first, because there was a blankness in her eyes. And I'd never seen a blankness like that. It was like looking in. It was like she had no soul. And a few months prior to that, I had a breakdown, and I ended up moving back down to Yorkshire. And when she left, just before I was leaving, she was crying. It was the first time I'd seen her cry. And what I know now is there were crocodile tears. And she was like, "Don't leave me, don't leave me." And when I came back, she was like, "I want you to come home. I love you, I love you." So I ended up going back up, and as soon as I got back up, it started again. And then she started coming home from work late, telling me she was working over, not getting until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And one particular night, she was on a night shift, and she came in, and I'd been working all day, and I was absolutely exhausted from work because I'd had very little to eat, and she was in bed all day because she'd been on a night shift. And then it got to about 10 o'clock that night, and I had to be up 4 o'clock the next morning. And she said to me, "Come on, let's do the shopping." I said, "I can't, I physically can't, I'm exhausted from work, I need to rest." And she started shouting at me, saying I was abusive to her because I wouldn't go shopping with her. And I believed that I was the abuser, and this was my fault that she behaved like she was behaving. And then in the back of my mind, it was like, this has to get better. It can't get any worse. It has to get better. So we booked this holiday, and again, I got further into debt, and I was told that I can't cope. I'm getting more and more, thousands more into debt here. And she was saying, well, she just kept telling me to go bankrupt, and I said I can't. And I was started getting letters from debt collectors, people was ringing me up at work, banks, demanding money, and it was a horrendous time. And so we ended up going on this holiday, and then, no, before the holiday, I was looking at myself. I was just getting ready for bed, and I looked at my body, and there was nothing on it whatsoever. And I knew I was dying. I knew I had a couple more months, if that left to live. But I had nobody, and I became unemployed because I was too ill to work, and because I wasn't working, I was made to clean the house from top to bottom every day, and she would come home with food for her and the boys, and there would be nothing for me, and I was like the male version of Cinderella, and so we decided to go on this holiday. No, well, before the holiday, a few weeks before the holiday, I just looked, and I was absolutely nothing. And I said to her, I said, I've not got long left to live. And she looked at my body, she looked at my naked body, and she says, I disgust her. I'm disgusting. I disgust her. I knew she'd been cheating on me. She had been seeing this man who she'd been working with. I knew that, even though she was denying it. And we ended up going on this holiday, and on holiday I got a wage of about £300 from my job, and because I just got a temporary job to push me on, and she said I had no holiday clothes, and this was the day we was going on holiday, and I said I was going to use to go shopping that morning, because his flight was at night, and we was flying from Manchester, so we had to drive down from Scotland to Manchester, and she so she says, you've got stuff to do, I'll go shopping for you. So I gave her this £300, and she come back with a few bottles of sun cream and a few shorts, and I said, I gave you £300. Where is it? Do I have any change? She went, no. And we went on holiday, and a few days into the holiday, we had a big fallout, and she locked me in the apartment while her and her sons went out for a meal. She thought she was being kind by giving me €3 a day. Now €3 a day, the exchange rate then, it was more, €3 was equivalent to about £3. £3 a day for food. And she'd taken my passport, so I'd rang my dad, and my dad was so upset. He said, get yourself back home. And I said, I can't, she's got my passport, I can't get home. And he wired me some money over, and she came back that night, and one of the nights, and I said to her, where's all the money gone? And she told me that she loved me, and she'd been out looking for a ring for me. And I just something inside me had just said, no, you've not, you're lying. And I said, stop lying to me, you've not. And so we went our own separate ways. And then it got to the end of the holiday, but I was really ill on holiday. She wouldn't give me any sun cream. She kept saying the sun cream was for her and the boys, and I couldn't have any, so I burnt to a crisp. I couldn't move. I was so sunburned. I ended up spending a few days just sleeping on the phone to my family, because I had this guilt because the way I'd spoken to my family, the way she'd made me towards them, and then at the end of the holiday, when we flew back into Manchester, she just said, "Are you coming home?" And I turned around and I said, "I am home." She went, "No, Scotland's your home." I went, "Scotland will never be my home." I said, "This is my home down here. Manchester down." I said, she goes, "Manchester's not your home." I said, "No, but it's next to my home." And she dropped me off, and my family was so happy. They were so happy to see me, but they broke down because they'd not seen me in 6 months. And when they saw me, I was just a skinny bag of bones. There was nothing to me. And I was so happy to be back. Nothing really hit me till a few weeks later. But this, whilst I was in that relationship, I had a very profound spiritual experience. I was broken. I'd had my self-esteem stripped away. I got low self-esteem. I got all my confidence taken away. I was thousands of pounds in debt. I had no friends. I had no family. I had absolutely nothing. And I remember one night, I was laid in bed, and every night I just used to lay in the bed and I'd say goodnight to my mum, even though she wasn't here. And I remember that that night that I was laid in bed and I was crying, and she was working nights, and I think her sons were at her dad's. So I was in on my own, and I was just laid in bed, and I just prayed, and I just asked for help. And I shut my eyes, and the next thing I was filled with this love, this peace, and I saw this figure appear in front of me, and he had a gold aura, and the figure was Jesus. Now, I didn't believe in Jesus at that point because I wasn't religious. I was spiritual, and Jesus was a religious figure. And I remember he came and he put his hand on my shoulder and he smiled and he said that everything's going to be all right. I'm with you. And then it faded away, and then not long after that, I did try to take my life. I tried to take it again. I'd taken it previously, but I couldn't. Something was stopping me, And I really wanted to press that reset button. I really wanted to end it because I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. This woman had taken everything. And everybody knew what was going on, but I could not see it. And I was, and a few weeks after the relationship had ended, that's when it hit me. I was laid in bed one night and I just broke down. And I just thought, I looked at myself and I just thought, what has happened? And that's when something inside me told me, this is it now. Something inside me was, I've got to start looking within. And that is when the healing journey started. The spiritual healing process. And it was bloody hard. For 12 months after, there was nightmares, anxiety. I could not trust anybody. I couldn't work. I could not get a job. Debt collectors were still on at me. I ended up having to go bankrupt. I was living out of a suitcase on a sofa bed. My mum, even though what I'd done to her, I'd been a horrible person to my family, but yet they had the love to take me back. And I held a lot of guilt for a long time. And it took, and she made me realize, she made me think I was the abuser. And I had to punish myself for that. With all this twin flame thing that she made out, that I had to endure that. She made me feel I was worthless, that the only person I had was her. And about 12 months after the relationship had ended, I was still angry, upset. I would still lay in bed at night and cry. And I started to, I got introduced to a teacher who started to help me. And every week I attended a meditation class, and that seemed to be really helping me. And this teacher offered me a course, and this course was £500. Now I had nothing, I was broke. And then one day, there was a brown envelope come for me in the post, and it was a cheque for £1,000. I mean, £1,000, and this course was £500. You know, this was the universe telling me that I have to do this. And from there, I did this course, and I did it again and again, because once you paid for it, you could keep doing it. You only had to pay for it once. And I dedicated my life to the spiritual path, and the healing journey. What is a tough one? It's not just love and light. It's the abuse, the psychological, the emotional, the sexual abuse, it you had to. It was bringing up all the feelings, all the memories. There was a point where my mum couldn't handle me anymore, and she was ready for kicking me out because I was a mess. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know how I'm here today, because there were so many times I wanted to kill myself, but then every time I attempted to do it, something inside me said no, because you do it, you're gonna have to relive it. And the first time I did it, I was visited, and I was brought back, and I was told that I had work to do here and I couldn't stay, so I came back. And then that's when I started reading up. After the relationship, I started reading up about narcissism and psychopathic behaviour and gaslighting, and it hit me. I thought that I was a victim of this, and it hits you. It hits you hard, because you realise that when you're in it. I mean, after people would say to me, why did you stay as long as you could? What people don't understand is that when you're in these sorts of relationships, you can't get out of them that easy, because these people, they take everything away from you. They make you become so dependent on them. How the heck can you survive without them? They make you feel inferior to them. One of the things she used to say was, I'm more spiritually advanced than you. And she used to make herself out to be some spiritual guru and who knew everything. And she made me dislike everybody. She made me anybody that wasn't spiritual, I couldn't associate with. And then even the spiritual people, it was, why are you liking them? They've got bad energy. Everybody had bad energy but her. That's what she made out. And then I started to realize all this after, and then a couple of years later, I started to forgive. And the more I started to walk on the spiritual journey, the more work I started to do on myself, I was trying to forgive her, and I tried, and then it was only probably about a year ago I properly forgave her, and I found her on Facebook, and I sent her a message, and I said to her in this message, I just said, I forgive you. And I forgive you because you have been a blessing. And nobody could understand why I forgave this woman for what she did. But what she actually did underneath the abuse, underneath everything, what she actually did is she was the trigger to set me on the healing journey. She made me realise that actually I'm worth more than that. and I am a beautiful being. I'm a divine being, and I need to love myself. And I don't deserve to be in a relationship like that. I deserve more because I am more. She made me realise that I'm just a beautiful person. And then I heard a quote that Jesus quoted. Before Jesus got crucified, he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And that quote kept going round and round in my head, and it clicked. She'd got no idea what she was doing. This woman had been, when she was a child, she'd suffered abuse. She did not know any better. To her, she did not think she was doing anything wrong. So I sent her this message and I said, what she'd done was triggered this massive healing within myself and set me on this wonderful path. And the response I got was, I can't remember exactly what she responded, but she'd not changed. The energy in the message was she was still the same woman, and I just sent her love, and I sent her on her way, and yeah, it was hell. The mind, I mean, there was some physical abuse, and I'm not saying physical abuse is better than psychological abuse, because all abuse is bad. But physical scars heal. Psychological scars take a lot more to heal. And it can stay with you many years. The power of words, the energy behind words, and this is why we need to be careful with words, because the energy behind words, imagine with every day somebody telling you they hate you, you're worthless, you can't do nothing. You know, every time you show an emotion, you're being told to man up, men don't cry. And being told you're not a man. As soon as you show any sign of emotion, being told that you're not a man and you're weak. That I was constantly getting told I was weak. And yeah, it stays a long time, and it's taken a heck of a lot of work. And even today, even now, right this instance today, there's been emotions coming up, but I know how to deal with these emotions. And what I want to say to everybody, but what I want to say to all my brothers out there is, you know, the most manly thing, the most masculine thing that a guy can do, and that is to cry. That is because crying is showing you've got feelings, you have a heart. So to all the guys out there, cry, because guys do cry, guys do show emotion. And this saying, man up, it's nonsense, utter nonsense. You are worth You are worth it. You're worthy. You are you're amazing. Because God made us this way. God does not create imperfections. Nobody is imperfect. Even my ex, I'm not going to say her name on live video, but her soul was pure. Underneath it, her soul was pure, because there is no impurities. What was impure was the abuse she went through as a child, the conditioning, the social conditioning, that is hell. No, religion talks about the devil, Satan in hell. What Satan actually is that it's actually an analogy of the mind, of the conditioning, because that is hell. These conditionings, and we have to understand, going back to the quote, forgive them for they know not what they do. That quote, if she knew what she did, would she have done that? And the answer is no. When she was a child, she saw her mum beat her dad. Her mum would lock her dad in a cupboard. She told me she would sit in her bedroom crying whilst she heard her mum battering her dad. And that's where it came from. She saw men as being weak, and she used the tools she had. She was a very intelligent woman because she used the tool. She'd done courses on the NLP and psychology and counseling, so she got into my mind and brainwashed me. Very dangerous. I mean, she even tried to question me on my sexuality. She had me trying to believe that that maybe I was homosexual, and I started to ask myself, well, is this why I've never really had good relationships with girls? Because maybe I am confused. But then I thought, no, I can't, because I am attracted to female, the female species, and that plan, and when I was fighting that, she didn't like it, but then she would, so then she went back to the, I'm not a man, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I can't do anything. So she used that tactic on me then. And what the second time I saw her cry was when they, what had happened is, when I looked at my body and I looked her in the eye and I said, I'm dying. I said, you've killed me. I collapsed a few times at work because I was that malnourished. I'd gone to the doctors, and the doctors was really worried about me. It told me that, you know, I needed to eat. That my body started to eat itself, and that's why I knew I was dying. I could feel my life slipping away. But at that point, I wasn't bothered, because death was the only way out. And I'd actually I was actually starting to embrace it, thinking that, and I started to count down the days to when I would die. Because I'm like, what have I got to live for now? What have I got to live for? Because I'm just a shell. I'm just a nothing. I'm a nobody. And then I told her that I was dying, and she looked at me and she burst into tears. And then she let me go. But even those tears was fake, because I learned after that what a narcissist does is they take everything from you until they can take no more. So they bleed you for everything. Once they can't get any more out of you, they let you go. If I would have died, my blood would have been on her hands. She couldn't have coped with that guilt. So that's when it had to end. And then the final thing, when she did ask me to come home, and I said I was home and I'm not going back, that wasn't me speaking. That was something else speaking through me. And yeah. But when we talk about sexual abuse, we think of, again, we always think of a man abusing a woman. She was very seductive, and that was one of her main ways of manipulation. So she would, so she knew I was physically, well, in the beginning I was physically attracted to her. In the end, I wasn't, because her inner beauty creates outer beauty, and when there's no inner beauty in there, you don't see outer beauty. There is no beauty whatsoever. It's a soul that radiates, that makes beauty. But the way she sexually abused me was through manipulation. So we'd have all this. She'd be the way she was with me, call me all this stuff, and be horrible to me. Then it got to bedtime, and then she'd cuddle up to me then, and you know, start kissing me, and it's strange because you get used to it. It's not pleasant, but it's almost perceived as being normal. And And I was completely brainwashed. And that's the most dangerous thing, brainwashing. I mean, we talk about, we hear about cults and things. Yeah, I was in a cult. Not a religious cult, but a relationship cult. And then after it was really strange because this other woman came along not long after, and she and I knew her previously on Facebook, and she was lived in America. She was from somewhere in Europe, but she moved back to Europe, and she was coming to London to visit, and she asked to meet up. And we was talking, and then she started telling me to come off Facebook, started telling me what to do, and I just thought, oh no, not this again. So I blocked her. What I have realised through all of this, so is it's made me who I am today, and now I don't look back and I don't think, yeah, I was this poor old victim. I think, do you know what? Yes, it happened, but it's made me who I am today, because if she hadn't have come along, I would have still been going in these same patterns. So by her coming along, it got me to look within myself, which introduced me to this teacher who helped me deal with all this, and then from there I started to meet like-minded people and started to get friends who valued me and who loved me, and now years later I've got this most amazing, wonderful tribe who I absolutely love to bits, and we're all connected, and we're all brothers and sisters, and it's just such a blessing. It really is such a blessing, and I'm able to help others, and be there. I'm able to forgive and not hold grudges. I understand that it's made me understand that I'm a beautiful person, I'm a beautiful being, and that it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to feel. It's okay to be a human. And yeah, so I don't hate the woman for what she did. Because maybe she was my twin flame, because the twin flame is not a romantic relationship, and I want to put that out there. A twin flame is not a romantic, perfect relationship. A twin flame is somebody that comes into your life and really shakes it up. They will have you close to death. But the reason that this happens is before you come to Earth, you sign this contract. So yes, I had to experience this. And it was through walking through hell that I entered the kingdom of heaven. Jesus had to suffer. He had to come to earth. He had to suffer. Through the suffering, he realized that he was the Son of God, like we all are. So I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And it's by talking about this, it's part of my healing process, you know, it's still part of my healing journey. And all of my brothers out there, again, I want to say, don't ever feel ashamed of anything. Don't ever feel ashamed, because we need to talk. Talking is the biggest healer. And when we can be open and talk about something, we can let it go then. So thank you all so much, and much, much love to you all.